Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to our virtual meeting or virtual classroom. Today we are going to be going over, 27-1, which is a bit of an odd lesson, as you will find. And so we're going to begin today with a survey. And on your notebook, besides copying down the heading, which we are talking about variability, and we'll get into that in a second, I want you to take down this survey and don't necessarily copy the question, just kind of answer the questions, but be noticing how you're answering each of these questions. All right. For example, number one, gender. Just write boy or girl, or whatever you want to put, I guess. Number two, your eye color. 3, your height, if you know it. 4, if you don't know some of these, that's all right. 4, how many people live in your home. 5, number of months you were born in. Number 1 is January. Number 2 is February. Number 3 is March, etc. Number 6, number of pets. Number 7, pick one of the following superpowers: ability to read minds, freeze time, flight, invisibility, or super strength. One of those 5. Number 8, your SEL teacher. Who's your SEL teacher? Number 9, number of minutes it took you to get ready for school today. Number 10, number of hours you spent on a computer in the last week. Number 11, the number of pieces of gum that you chew on a typical day. And number 12, your hand span, which is simply the measurement in centimeters from your thumb to the tip of your pinky finger. What is your hand span? So, hypothetically speaking, assuming that you answered those questions, ladies and gentlemen, what do you notice about those questions? If I were to ask a room full of students, full of 6th graders, these questions, would they all answer these questions exactly the same? Is there just one right answer to these questions? No, there's not just one right answer to these questions. And that is because these are known as statistical questions. So I do encourage you to take some time to pause this video and copy this down. A statistical question, ladies and gentlemen, is a question that will produce answers that will vary from person to person. That means that the answer to a statistical question will depend on who you are asking. Sometimes it will depend on the person, sometimes it will depend on the situation or on the time that you ask the question. But yes, it will produce a different answer from person to person. All right, a statistical question will depend on the person. Yes, it is possible to have 2 people that have the same answer, but it just means that there is a potential for different answers within a group of people or situations. Now, the best way to understand a statistical question is to understand what is not a statistical question. For example, if I were to ask you, who was the first president of the United States? Assuming you know the answer to that, it doesn't matter whom I ask in the classroom, the answer is always going to be George Washington. There's only one possible answer there. That is not a statistical question. If I were to ask you, what day of the week is it today? It's Monday as of me recording this video. It is Monday. That's not going to change today on this day. If you were to ask me or anybody and they were to answer correctly, the right answer is Monday. That is not a statistical question. All right. What is the answer to number 7 on the test? There's only one right answer if it's a math test. And so yes, that is not a statistical question. Again, a statistical question is one that will have, that can potentially have different answers depending on the person or the situation that they're in. All right. And in fact, if you look at number 3 from our textbook, it asks, consider the following question. What is your teacher's height? Talking about me, what is your math teacher's height? Ladies and gentlemen, I am 5'7". If you are in my class, I am your math teacher, and they're asking you, what is your teacher's height? The only possible right answer to that is 5'7". It doesn't matter which of my students you ask that question to, the answer is always going to be 5'7". So therefore, this is not a statistical question. Okay, there's not, the answer doesn't depend on anything. 3B, it asks, how many pets does your teacher have? I'm your teacher. I have 4 pets. Their names are Cirilla, Annie, Willow, and Carson. In case you didn't know that, not that that's important. But anyways, I have 4 pets. No matter whom or which of my students you ask, if they are my students, the answer is going to be 4. That is not a statistical question. The answer does not depend on whom you're asking. So in essence, guys, if the answer to the question is, well, it depends, then it is a statistical question. Okay, the question will produce different answers that will vary from person to person or from situation to situation. All right, consider each of these questions. Gender. Yes, it is possible to have 2 people in a classroom that have the same gender. That is totally possible. But it depends. It depends on who I'm asking, how they're going to answer that question. Eye color. It depends on who I'm asking. Height. It depends on who I'm asking. How many people live in your home? It depends on who I'm asking, right? Number of the month that you were born. It depends on who I'm asking for pets, etc., etc. Which brings us to the second term that we're looking at today, which is variability. Notice how the word vary is at the beginning. The word vary simply means difference or change. It means that there's different things. So variability is how many different answers there are to a statistical question. For example, gender, boy or girl, that's it. The variability is just 2 different questions. I mean, 2 different answers. All right. Whereas if I were to ask my students, well, what is your height? I'm going to get like 10, 12, 30 different answers, depending on which classroom I ask, right? That is a lot more variability. Look at these questions down here. Do you play Minecraft at least once a week? Again, consider that question. Do you play Minecraft at least once a week? All right. How many answers are there to that question? Only 2 answers. Yes or no. Is there a lot of variability? Is there a lot of difference in answers? No, there's only 2 possible answers. So no, there is not a lot of difference. Whereas if I were to ask, what were the students' scores for their last exam? Basically, anytime somebody got a different grade, that is a different score for that test. All right, so there's going to be a lot of variability down here, a lot or a high degree. You can write a high degree or a lot of variability. Whereas for do you play Minecraft at least once a week, there is very little or very low degree of variability. And you could say the same thing for each of the questions that we went up here. Gender, boy or girl, very low variability, very little difference. Eye color, there's, I would say more, I wouldn't say a lot of variability, but yes, it'd be brown, gray, blue, green, hazel. It's like 5 different answers. So yes, more variability, and yet not that much. Height, depending on how many students, they probably each have a different height, right? So there's going to be a lot of variability there. How many people live in your home? Again, there's probably going to be a lot of variability. Now, is it possible for 2 students to have the same number of people in their homes? Yes, but again, there's going to be more difference in my students for that one, etc. So that is basically it. A statistical question is going to have different answers, potentially have different answers, or answers that will vary, that will be different from person to person. And variability is just how different are those answers? How many different answers can there be for that statistical question? All right. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, you will go to number 7 and number 9. So we're only doing 3, 7, and 9. And notice how, for example, on number 7, all you're doing is you're going to write, is there a lot of variability, a lot of potentially different answers, or very little variability for the following questions? For example, how tall are high school students? If you were to line up all the students in a high school, is there going to be a lot of difference in their heights? Or are they all going to be the same 2 heights or same 3 heights? All right. Is it going to be a lot or little? The scores in a hard math test. When you guys take a hard test, do you notice that there's a lot of difference in the scores, or are they all generally the same? How much medicine is in a pill? If you have a pill from the same jar, do you expect there to be the same amount of medicine in each pill, very little variability, or a lot of variability? Each pill is going to have a very big difference or a significant difference in the amount of medicine that is in each pill. And then for number 9, all you're saying is yes or no. Is this a statistical question? Is this a question that will only have one answer, or is it going to have multiple answers? For example, 9A, what day of the week is it today? Today is Monday. Is that going to be the same for everybody? It is going to be Monday for everybody. So it is not a statistical question. It doesn't depend on anything. There's only one answer. So that's how you'll answer those. So ladies and gentlemen, today was pretty simple. Hopefully you found this helpful. And tomorrow we'll continue with this discussion a little bit more, and I will see you then.